Welcome to the Superabound podcast, where vision-led entrepreneurs learn to build a generous business without sacrificing what matters most. You are listening to episode 324, What to Do Before You Hire Someone. Now, maybe you're running a business with 1,000 people. This is still relevant to you. Also, if you're running a business with just yourself, it's relevant to you. This is all about how to build your team in a smart way, how to build a lean team. That is one of the things we are most passionate about here, is helping business owners thrive without overworking or overhiring or overspending. And today we're going to talk all about that. Welcome, Erin.
Hi. Okay, so this is such an important topic. It's been coming up a lot with a lot of my clients. I've had some folks who had grown their businesses, had, like 20-person teams, and then realized, okay, I am paying millions of dollars in salaries at this point. We are kind of existing on a razor's edge, and then something major happens with the economy or their industry, and suddenly this once very thriving business is feeling scary. And so I want to talk about that really specifically today, because I think that I've watched this happen with colleagues, I've watched it happen with clients and friends. Having a lot of people and creating a business where your business depends on, growing and growing and growing and growing the team. We've watched in the last few years how harmful that can become when the winds change. And that is why, Steve, as you said, we're so passionate about helping businesses run kind of in a more lean way, which doesn't mean you can't ever hire someone. That's not the premise of this episode, but it means that you want to be very thoughtful about when you're hiring, who you're hiring, and making sure that that person has a skill set and a vision that is aligned with what you are trying to do and the impact you are trying to have in your business.
It's a funny thing. There are all kinds of companies where the size of the personnel is used as a proxy for the health of the business. Like, how big's your company? Well, we have 1,000 people. How big's your company? We've got 250 people. And you're like, whoa, that's super impressive. Maybe not. They might be losing tons of money. They might not have product market fit. They might just have a bunch of venture capital money that they need to pump into the system. And so they do it with headcount to appease their investors. Headcount does not mean success. In fact,
Yes.
Oftentimes it can mean the opposite. If you suddenly have lots of people to manage, lots of individuals doing all kinds of things, that's going to be more overhead, more headache, more management for you, which might mean the opposite of success for what you actually want. So the place to begin before you hire someone is to actually ask yourself, what kind of a business do I want? How much management do I want to be responsible for? And what will these people actually be doing to provide me with more value in my business than I'm going to pay them? It can be tempting to hire because you're like, I just want this off my plate. I want a bigger team. I want to have a bigger impact. Headcount and impact are not necessarily connected.
Yeah, headcount and impact are not necessarily connected. That is such a powerful thing. I'm working with a business owner right now who we are basically completely renovating her business because it grew and she scaled with total dependence on her team, to the point that she didn't know some problems were happening that were really ended up being pretty detrimental to the overall revenue of the business. And what we're doing now is we're starting kind of, I think it's harder. I think it's easier to build from a lean perspective, and maybe a harder task to get a certain level of success, to have a certain team to really maybe confuse that headcount and success are not the same thing. But then having to kind of rebuild, it can be very challenging, but it also brings up so much static, because I think as business owners in certain places, we've been taught to like outsource our problems. I do believe in delegation. I do believe that having people to support you, the right people to support you, aligned people to support you is really wonderful. But I think it's almost like a status symbol for a lot of business owners to say, well, I have my executive assistant and I have my personal assistant and I have my CMO and my CFO and I have all of these people around me. It can make you feel very confident, but it can also create a problem where you don't know some key things that are happening in your own business. And then when there's a problem, you might find out that that CMO you hired is doing something that is really not vision aligned for you. Maybe you are like us and you don't believe in cold DMing and cold emailing people with really spammy messages, but maybe that's what your CMO has been up to. And you're not going to find that out until your clients start complaining. This is a problem. And I think that the beauty of creating a lean business, even if you have a big team, the idea of a lean business is that the people within it are really empowered, autonomous to a certain degree, but you are never out of the loop. You're not micromanaging, but you are not unaware of what's happening in your business.
So getting down to the question, what to do before you hire someone, you must have your vision in place, your values in place, a clear understanding of what each part of your business does and how you want it done, and what those next lanterns that you want to light are. Those cannot be outsourced to somebody else. You can't bring on a CMO and say, tell me how we're supposed to grow. You need to have those ideas on how you move forward. What matters most to you as a business? What is the beating heart of your company that cannot be sacrificed? Because if you bring somebody else and you're like, I don't know, what's this company supposed to be like? Before you know it, it's unrecognizable and you just built yourself a job that you didn't want to have. So those foundational elements around which you can create a powerful team, you have to have before you start bringing people on. And that's where coaching comes in. Honestly, the punchline for this whole episode is hire a coach, because to go deep into what is the current state of your business, how do you want it to move forward across all these different areas that you might hire somebody for, working with someone who is not yet costing you $1 million a year or however much the salary might be is a huge time saver, a cost saver, and will help you feel empowered as the business owner to bring people on to your vision rather than, hoping someone else can kind of save the day.
Yeah. And don't just hire any coach. There's a lot of people out there who claim to be business coaches, and maybe they do ask really beautiful questions. There's a school of thought around coaching that says coaching is just asking great questions. That's amazing. There's definitely a place for that. But what I think you mean, Steve, or what I'm going to tell you that you mean, let's be honest, you should have a coach who can help you in strategic thinking partnership as well. I'm going to toot our little horn over here for a second. Not that you have to hire us, but if you're listening to this podcast, you clearly are resonating with something that we're saying. But something that I've heard time and time again from a lot of people over the years is conversations with us as their super-bound coaches are more valuable sometimes than sitting down with their entire executive team. And that is because We are one step removed from your business. We are not there to tell you to stay in at all costs. We don't have, any, our jobs are not at stake unless we don't do a good job. And that's our fault if that's the case. But we are not committed to certain projects working at your expense. I really think every business owner is walking kind of a solo journey up this mountain in the dark that we talk about a lot in our book, Superabound. You can have amazing people within your company that you really do think are supportive, that you think are aligned. But when there is a problem, it is very hard to sometimes solve it from within the problem. If suddenly someone on your executive team or someone that you've hired to do specific tasks isn't doing what you expect of them, it's sometimes really challenging to work out that problem within the ecosystem of your business without an outside person who's really just there to support you.
So put some thought into what kind of support you most want. Having another person who can create that space, be a thinking partner, advocate for you and what your vision is part of how you do that. It's not your spouse's job. It's not your partner's job. It's not any of your friends' job. It's certainly not one of your employees' jobs or even an investor's job. It's your job, and a coach can be that person who is free from all those other burdens and just be there for you to determine what it is that you want as you grow your business. Because in the world around us, there's going to be all kinds of symbols of success, right? If I can grow to a certain headcount, then the world will see me as successful. Forget, that's the goal swamp. That's chapter 2 in our book. Living for other people's expectation and praise is how you find yourself burnt out and very unfulfilled at the moment when you think that you've done it. So don't assume that it's going to be great if you just follow what you see around you. You need to take a step back and realize, why are you building this team? Why are you building this company? And then when you've got your why in place, what are those key functions that are going to support you so that you aren't doing the things that you don't want to be doing, the things that you aren't so great at doing, and you can build a team that feels great for you and the business that you want to have.
Because it's hard. And I just even want to address that hiring an outside person rather than just hiring another employee that's going to maybe tell you what you want to hear and hopefully maybe do some of the things you expect them to do. When you hire, one of us or one of our certified coaches, one of our Superabound coaches, it's a vulnerable thing because suddenly you are not in that space having to uphold the vision of the company, having to be the leader, having to, rally everybody behind you. You actually get to have the space to be a human being with wants, with needs, with issues, with static, with challenges, and you have another person whose only job is to be there to support you. And ideally, a lot of coaches can do that, but ideally that same person can do it in a way that is strategic and aligned with your vision. This is something when we train coaches, we talk about this a lot. Our job is not just to say, "Yay, clap, 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 good for you. Whatever you want. You want to stay in bed today? Totally great." Sometimes that is great. But our job is to be on the same team as your big vision. And one thing I know for sure, without any doubt in my mind, I could be wrong, I guess, but it doesn't feel wrong to me. One thing I know for sure is that being on the same team as your vision is not something everyone in your world can do. And it also requires you, the human being behind it all, to be well. You cannot reach the top of the mountain if you are burnt out. You cannot light that next lantern if you really can't get out of bed. And I've watched too many entrepreneurs run themselves into the ground while smiling at their team and end up having to shut down their beautiful, thriving businesses because they just tried to pay other people to do the things that were really deeply their own job, or they were accumulating headcount to try to solve a problem that was a vision problem. So hiring a coach is a steal. It's kind of a weird way of saying it's a steal. Really, when you think about it, having someone that can act as another executive brain and is there for your holistic well-being, it's really hard to find that person as your CFO. It's really hard to ask another executive on your team to be that for you. And I mean, the price tag of having your own personal coach is drastically less than paying someone a couple $100,000 a year or $1 million a year if they're someone who's very high level for you.
And you bring up a really great point, Erin, in terms of being well. You don't want to try to solve fundamental problems with throwing people at it. It can be tempting to think, I just need more people to offload things to, and then I'll feel better. As with so many things, it's best to leave on good terms. It's best to grow on good terms, from strength to strength. If you're feeling stretched to the max, absolutely, floored in so many ways such that you're dreading getting out of bed, chances are bringing other people on won't help that, right? There's something else that's happening with the business that you probably need to figure out, rein in, put some systems in place, kind of get your hands around before you onboard a whole new person, right? People come with their own baggage. They're going to come with their own static, their own, agendas. Putting that into the mix is not necessarily going to solve anything. In fact, in most cases, it's going to make things worse because then there's more energy in the mix and you don't yet have your hands around it in the first place. So that's one of the reasons why starting with coaching, getting some perspective, developing a plan for how you're going to grow in a smart way. We have our program called Grow Smooth for exactly that reason. It's all about knowing what is your path up the success spiral so that you're not just, trying to hire your way out of a tricky spot, but you're actually clear on where you are, how you want to move, and what impact you want those roles to have.
Yeah, and just to give a really tangible kind of symptom of this, it's when you hear yourself starting to say things like, I need to hire someone to do my social media. I need to hire someone to be my customer success person. When you are talking about trying to outsource tasks as a job description, that's often a symptom of not being clear. Not that it's bad to have someone come in and do your social media for you, or that we probably all need customer success people. But where that usually comes from is it's a product of you feeling overloaded, like you don't have enough time. And now you're going to have, or you're hoping that the person you hire who claims to be an expert is also going to be magically aligned with you, your vision, your values, and they are going to work in a way that you agree with, using methods that they are supposed to be an expert in, but you are also right on board with. And it's magically going to take time off your schedule. I did this. I hired someone to do social media, and I was so relieved thinking this person's going to come in and take care of everything. I never have to think about this again. I never have to write another post. And I have shared this before. I ended up spending more time each month reviewing their posts, trying to teach them to speak like me. It was a lesson. I was about to say it was a waste of my money and my time, but it was a lesson because I learned that I actually wasn't clear enough to have someone come in, and I didn't have the time to really train that person. I also probably should have given them a trial period and, acted like a leader. All the things I now teach my clients to do when they're hiring someone. But I didn't do any of those things. I just hired someone who I thought would save me some time. And it created more time, more trouble. They never got it. They never spoke like me.
Yeah, lesson learned.
Lesson learned.
Which kind of brings us to the last point that I want to touch on here. Obviously, there's so much that we could go into, but just to kind of wrap it up for now, let's talk about the technological side of what you can do before you hire somebody. There's all kinds of frenzy in the media about AI taking people's jobs. And sure, really what AI is there for, though, is to help us be more productive, to have someone who does get your voice, and it's the computer. It costs you $20 a month instead of $2,000 or $20,000 a month. And if you aren't yet exploring or leaning into how AI can help you with these different functions that you want to hire a person for, chances are you're missing out on some of the big benefits that these tools can provide. We talk a lot about how to set up your work systems so that AI can be the biggest possible benefit for you. We'll link to some of those resources in the show notes. But we are in the dawn of the AI age, right? This is the time when if you have a problem, you don't necessarily have to hire someone to solve it. Or if you do, they had better also be using AI to help them solve it. It's important to lean into that to see where you might be able to get those gains, because chances are they are there for you.
Yeah. And to that point, working with AI will also teach you how to lead people better, because you will learn how to give very specific, articulate feedback. If I were to hire someone to do social media now, I would know exactly how to give that person feedback. I'm not planning on doing it because I do collaborate with AI and I do find it really easy and fun now to write everything. We wrote a book. It's so easy to write a post. This is available to you, but if you don't have someone on your team who is on the side of you and your vision, like a Superabound coach, it's going to be really hard to know who to trust, who to align with, what is actually resonating, and how to grow in a way that doesn't lead to a huge payroll that you can't really sustain if things are hard for a few months. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. We have tons of resources in the show notes over at besuperabound.com/podcast. Look for this episode and we will see you over there. Thanks, everybody.